Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. The information here is strictly for educational purposes only and is not a recommendation to trade. You are solely responsible for your own trading actions. No members of DSC Capital were harmed in the making of this video.
Hello everybody, welcome back to a new weekly video. This is Nostradamus and I'm going to be covering the weekly outlook for crude. Unfortunately, Rob is not with us. He is having some tech issues, so it will just be me and the scenarios I have outlined. I did message Rob to kind of see what his scenarios were, so I'll sort of try to share his as well. I'll try to share it to the best of my abilities. So what do we have and what are we expecting? Last week, what we seen, we really seen the short variation play out. So this was a variation, the tertiary scenario, where the market would fail to take out the prior weekly high and the market would end up just rolling lower. Now, I'm going to be honest, one of my targets, or really what I expected, was that we would test the prior weekly point of control and then the market would revert higher. That's not what happened. It did extend much lower past what I expected, breaking through the prior weekly low and then ultimately coming into this low volume node. Now I do think that this low volume node would be in interest coming into the week moving forward. So what's this profile that I have to the right? So this profile is pretty much from this swing high, from this swing low to this swing high, pretty much just covering this entire balance. And this is a weekly chart. This is a weekly full session chart. As we can see, pretty much value is just overlapping. It's not really moving away. So given that it is overlapping, I just pretty much slapped a composite over it just to see where value is, where the MC point of control is, and kind of where key spots are. So what am I expecting moving forward? Let me show it on this chart maybe. So this was Friday's full session, full session trade. First of all, we are in a time framing down. Friday was an inside day against Thursday's action. So this is Thursday's session and this is Friday's trade pretty much. Now on Friday, what the market did is it traded up over here, built a small distribution before ultimately breaking lower, and then building a second distribution over here. Now, I do think what the market does in this area is going to be pretty key to what plays out. And beyond that, or like looking kind of before on Thursday, we had a pretty key reaction on Thursday. So on Thursday, let me just change this color. On Thursday, the market did have a sort of a look below and fail of the prior monthly low. That was pretty key to note when we pretty much we looked below prior monthly low and you can kind of see it on the profile, pretty tapered off, not much interest. From there, market rotated higher. Like I said, we built this distribution, failed to hold these upper prices, but really what it looks like it did is it looks like it carved out a higher low against Thursday's low. So that's like the first interesting thing that I'm gonna note, or I'm noting for this week. Now, given that one, this is pretty much in a very wide balance and we are trading against a low volume node. So this is the low volume node I am referring to, this one right over here, which is between, I want to say 5680s up to 5710s. Given that we are trading in between that area, what I'm going to be paying attention to is what does the market do against Friday's distribution, this lower distribution. What I would like to see is, let me just change this color. So what I would like to see is if the market is able to pretty much just continue higher right on the Sunday open. We're able to just trade higher, and I'm not sure where this can go. So if it trades higher and we break through the prior full session high, shifting us to neutral, that'll be great because then at that point, what I would be watching for is either a pullback to this low volume pocket, which was created on Friday, for a continuation higher, and upside targets is just going to be back to the prior weekly point of control, which is right there, singles, and then ultimately to start working maybe back. I mean, that would be a pretty substantial move, but maybe back towards that VPOC, the MC point of control, up at 60s. That would be one sort of play I have. The other variation of this would be, let's say we maybe retest the lower, so we shift time framing to neutral, the market comes back, retest all this two-way, and then we continue higher. That would be a pretty nice scenario as well. So pretty much what my primary scenario is, Rob actually I think is primary short, but what my primary scenario is based on the idea that we are in an overall balance. If the market can get if the market can get above this two-way, be watching for it to hold and then continue higher. And so pretty much just holding against this distribution. Okay, and now for the short scenario, what am I expecting? For the short, I'm really paying attention to also what the market does at Friday's distribution. Now, I could see this playing out two ways. One, the market did break out from this distribution and then it came back in. So if, let me do this and then change this. If we do, let's say we do test higher, but the market isn't able to break out from here, and we sort of have a lower high retest, maybe a lower high against this reference point, this prior swing, then maybe the market does continue lower. And at this point, we would obviously watch for that swing to break, for this to start exploring lower, looking to break through the prior weekly low, prior monthly low, and then if, as long as it starts to accept there, so what does it look like if it starts to accept over here? Pretty much it just starts to build a distribution. It's just holding prices. It's not going to be like snapping away from it. It's spending time below prior monthly low and the prior weekly low. From here, I would be watching for us to trade down towards a high volume node, which I believe the high volume node I have, it's between 5650s upwards of the 5680s, so around this reference point. And then if it does continue lower, I believe Rob has a target way down at like the 50. Let me just double check. I think Rob has a target down at 55s uh if I'm correct. But that's pretty much like what my short scenario is. My short scenario is we hold within this distribution from Friday and the market just starts to work lower, trading through the prior monthly low and then into the high volume node below us. And I believe that's pretty much all I had to cover for today. One thing I would say is on Thursday's action, Thursday, this whole area is pretty thin, which makes me think that if the market is able to shift us to neutral, or we play out the long scenario, I do think that this structure gets taken back pretty easily. There is this little sort of structure right over here, mini zipper. Maybe we get caught up in this area, but for the most part, Thursday's trade is pretty thin and it's, just very directional. Uh, the high volume node, just to show you guys which high volume node I am referencing, the high volume node is this 5650s upwards of the 5680s. So the short scenario, that is where I would be watching for on the downside. Like I said, I think Rob had lower targets, but for me and my short scenario, like I said, I'm just expecting it maybe in between over here, starts to distribute, and then we'll see where it goes from there. I'm not sure I have too much else to cover. I pretty much covered the short scenario, I've covered the long scenario, and yeah, I think I'm probably just gonna wrap up the video over here. Overall, it is December. I'm personally likely to start trading less this week, this upcoming week, and then the following week, just to review 2025, kind of set goals. I'm not sure if anyone is going to be trading. If you guys are trading, leave that in the comments below. I'm curious to see how many people are trading or are going to be just taking the time off. If you guys did enjoy the video, you know, like, comment, and subscribe, and hopefully we will see you guys back in next week's video with Rob. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.